physical beings deteriorate before they die. In other words, you do not allow yourselves to have a glorious physical experience and then make a new decision and move from physical to non-physical without the negative.